You know what this film reminds me of? It reminds me of one of those films where they shot a bunch of footage and they had a script going, and then whatever happened, whether it's producer changes or they just lost the friggin' footage, they're like, "Oh shit, we have a clip here, but what are we gonna do with it?" And instead of scrapping the whole idea, they try to come up with another, and then something happens with that, and then something happens with the other idea, and they piece together this Frankenstein uh, story where there's like parts here and parts there, and they just try to attach it and make a movie out of it. Throughout this film, it really started to feel like this wasn't a Children of the Corn film, but rather something else, probably called Genesis, that they decided to throw in the Children of the Corn into and add it to the franchise. Because there was a lot of things going on, and it's like, this doesn't feel like a Children of the Corn film. First of all, it's the only one not to take place in Gatlin, Nebraska. This is totally in California, right from the get go. And story wise, like just like plot wise, there's so many plot holes throughout, which they they wrap up like they kind of use them as twists and reveals, but as an audience you're so confused and you're wondering like, but this doesn't make sense and this is not adding up to this, and you're just confused, and then they'll fix it up and they'll reveal it and they're like, okay, now we're making a little bit of sense. But Children of the Corn Genesis was distributed by Dimension Extreme, and this is the ninth film in the franchise. It wasn't bad, and Dimension Extreme, they're popular for being extreme and having a lot of gore and unrated stuff in it. So this film starts off with a period piece looking scene where this guy is coming back from the war, seemingly Vietnam, and he comes to his parents' house and his parents are all dead. They have corn shoved down their throats, and the dad has corn shoved in his eyes. And there's subtle things in the house, like in the background you'll see "baby killer" written, and it's just a horrific sight for this guy to come back home to, especially coming back from a war as a soldier. He's still in uniform and everything. And there's this little girl. I assume it's his little sister, but she's got her hair down. And she's talking about the one who walks behind the rose, and the whole shebang is the same. Like the Children of the Corn lore is the same if you've seen the films. And she starts to mess with his head, you know, calling him a baby killer and all that stuff. And there's a Bible on the ground, and it's right on the chapter of Genesis, so that's where the whole Genesis theme comes into the film. The title, the subtitle, or whatever you want to call it. And he's basically on a stairwell, and she follows him, calling him baby killer, and he's backing up, backing up. He starts having PTSD from the war where he had to kill kids, and eventually he points the gun to himself. And then he's about to shoot himself, but she has this corn figure made out of corn. This movie's full of the corn figures. I kind of like that. It's creepy, but she throws it at him instead of just letting him blow his brains out because she wants him to die. But instead of him shooting himself and letting him, she throws the corn at him, and he goes flying down the stairs. But immediately it cuts to him flying out a window, and I was like, that logistically doesn't make any sense at all. I didn't see a window behind him, first of all, and second of all, if there was, he wouldn't fall through it. Like he falls pretty damn hard and goes flying as if she like supernaturally pushed him, which could make sense because this is the most supernatural film, Children of the Corn film in the series that I've seen so far. Very, very cliche film as you go along throughout. It really reminds me of a lot of themes that I've seen in other horror movies. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, Final Destination, even at one point. But it's very small scale because a lot of it takes place in one location, in one house. And it's this couple basically being stuck in this house. This couple named Allie and Tim. I'm pretty sure, boyfriend and girlfriend. They're engaged. I'm quite sure though. It's never confirmed whether they're engaged or not. But they're definitely. She's pregnant. They're together. they're serious, all that. And they have car troubles in the middle of the California desert. That's how they specify it at the beginning, somewhere in the California desert. And they find a house. They're walking down and they find the only remote house in like a 3 hour radius. So luckily their car broke down right in the or just in the right spot. I mean, luckily they found somebody. Unluckily for them, it's the owner of this place is played by Billy Drago. Had to check the back of the case. Mind fucks, I'm telling you, mind blanks. Um, yeah, Billy Drago, who I remember him, or I recognize him especially in a movie called Vamp that was released by Arrow Video. I like that one. But he's one of those that pops up in a lot of things, especially in the horror genre. So he is this creepy old guy who doesn't have a phone because that's a massive cliche. Like, who has a phone in horror movies? When cars break down, there's always the creepy old guy with no phone. And it's funny though, because Allie, she's such a badass. She's like, "You have no phone? I don't believe you. It looks like a phone line back behind me." So, and she starts arguing with the guy, and Tim is like, "You know what? Just leave it alone. We'll go find another house." And she's like, not letting it go. She's like, "No, I know you have a phone, so can you just let us use it?" And he slams the door in his face. She's like, "Asshole! If I have a miscarriage, I'm blaming you." And walks away. And then he opens the door again, and he's like, "You know, it wouldn't be very Christian of me for you not to use the phone, so come right in." We all know where this is going because we all know, or I'd say 2000. I was going to say early 2000s, but I think this is like right 2010. But it's still tropey as hell if you've ever watched a horror movie from that era. It plays the cards pretty familiarly. So they meet his wife, whose name is Helen, and she is a Ukrainian girl. They can tell by her accent, and they ask her where she's from. And she is very timid and seems like afraid of this Billy Drago character. His name is Preacher Cole. His name's Cole, but everybody around town calls him Preacher, so I'm just going to call him Preacher Cole. And they're having iced tea, and then the woman shows the guy to the phone, and she starts to come onto him. She starts to, rub herself on, give him a reach around, and all that shit, and he's all creeped out. And actually, before that, she tells him the call that is going to cost $100, and all he has in his wallet is 50. And she's like, "Yeah, I'll just take that." And then she's like, "Do you have any pot?" It's like, Jesus Christ, lady, you want pot, money, and sex for a phone call? This chick isn't fucking around. Or is she? And he gets a hold of the town, like, tow truck or whatever. And since they're 3 hours away from the nearest one, and it happens to be on a Sunday that they got car troubles, this trip is going to cost $900 plus service fees and all this shit to get themselves towed, unless they stay the night and wait for the morning to go an hour away to a garage where the car can be fixed, which happens to be closed because it's Sunday. So of course they're trapped in this house with this creepy old man who lied about a phone, and he has this timid, what seems to be a bride to buy, like an overseas bride. And yeah, so they're stuck there, and the guy basically very clearly tells Tim and Allie that he's very private, Cole's very private, and to not wander around the property. So just stay in the spare room and use the outhouse outside if you need to, but basically don't go anywhere else. And Allie, of course, breaks the rules, cliche. And he should insert like a cliche every time there's a cliche up here, every time there's one in the movie. But she goes to use the outhouse, and she hears some noises, so she decides to explore. She goes to the shed. She finds this like really weird room with a bed on the floor with a huge crucifix over the top and chains everywhere. It really looks like sadistic and satanic sexually. and then she goes to the shed where she finds a chained up door, and she hears a little kid crying in the background. Well, she goes back inside and she tells Tim about this, and he's kind of on the fence of, like it's not like he's not doubting her, but he's also questioning like if she made a mistake and all that, because is she 100% sure to make an accusation like this? And they just find themselves in a heap of trouble. So Tim goes to have a conversation with Cole, basically, but before he can find him, he finds a camera in the living room, like a camcorder, and he decides to look through it because he's wondering what. There's this random tripod with a camera in the middle of the living room, and he decides to look through it, and there's really disturbing imagery in the camera and really fucked up things with kids, and not like those kind of things with kids. I mean, just kids doing creepy things, and the whole room that she found in the back, and just really weird like medical scenes, operation scenes, stuff like that. Like really weird, twisted stuff. So then we get some reveals. We're revealed that, or at least from Cole, that Helen had a baby. Well, she was pregnant when she came from the Ukraine, and she didn't tell him that, so he had no idea that she was pregnant. She came from. This is a lie, by the way. Spoiler alert. But she came from the Ukraine, and she was pregnant and had this kid that now she's locking in the back shed. There's other things revealed later on, but that's his story towards Tim. And she keeps him, or he keeps him in the back chained up because of a lot of supernatural reasons, which in the second act of this movie, basically, a lot of poltergeist just starts happening. So this kid has some wicked ass powers. And they touched that on, I believe, the fifth movie, where the kid can like really do a lot of supernatural shit. Well, this one goes balls to the wall with the supernatural stuff. I kind of liked it because it did come out of nowhere. It started really turning Paranormal Activity all of a sudden, except without the found footage. And I just found when shit started flying all over the house, like kind of a change of pace and something different for the Children of the Corn series. So I can't really complain too much about the randomness of it. But yeah. There's also a scene that I forgot to talk about. The little kid, I don't know how he gets out of the shed, but the little kid comes into the house. Again, plot holes. I have no idea how he got out of the shed. Kid comes into the living room, and this is while Tim is looking through the camera. And he walks to the door where Allie is still in the spare room, puts a blood print on the door, and then leaves, and Tim does not notice whatsoever. Which is, he's right there. They're in the same room. Doesn't hear him, nothing. I guess he was really, really into the really fucked up footage that he was watching, but yeah, nothing. Doesn't hear a peep. And after this, soon after this, this is where the supernatural shit starts happening. So the doors are all shut, and the windows are all, every time they try to escape somewhere, something will hit them, something will fly right into them, and they're literally, in all sense of the word, not allowed to leave, kind of thing. Also, there's a lot of manipulation where this entity also messes with Tim and Allie's head. For example, there's a scene like I was talking about with Helen coming on to Tim. There's a scene where Allie gets a vision in her head where he actually had sex with her, and she envisioned them on the floor and him actually doing it. So she blows up on him, and she makes him promise that it didn't happen, but she had the vision where it was, and then there's this whole distrust with her on him, and they really get it at each other's throats because they're being manipulated. They start to think they're hallucinating at one point. At one point, I think Ali mentions like if they're in a dream or in some kind of coma, or if they like never made it off the road, and if they died in the car. And then there's the scene with Tim, and he's talking to Cole, and Cole says the same thing, that this entity or this kid or whatever the hell this is puts stuff in his head, and he starts to mess with Tim, saying that, are you sure that Ali had a miscarriage? Because he had a vision. Cole had a vision in his own head that it was something else, abortion, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and he's just so sick and paranoid because I thought like he was being serious, and I was just like, man, can you like you'd lie about something like that? Like, does that happen? That'd be so devastating if I was ever to find out that somebody did that to me. Like, if I loved somebody and they told me that they miscarried and then they were lying and I found that out years later, like I don't know what I would do in that situation. It's insane. It's insane. I have no idea what I would do. Like the emotions would be rolling. So just them being stuck in this house and having their minds fucked with. And this is where I was saying before that this feels like a movie that had Children of the Corn put into it. And if it was, they did a good job putting Children of the Corn into it. It's not like they just threw a little theme or hint of Children of the Corn. Like this feels like a Children of the Corn movie. It feels like it belongs in the franchise, no doubt. But it feels like a lot more, It feels like a supernatural movie. It feels like it's very psychological. It's a very psychological horror, and I really like that. I love this scene. I'm telling you, I love this scene where the cops actually showed up. So word got out, and when Tim made the phone call, the cops actually like it got there because there was a scene where the phone lines ripped out. But the cops do arrive. Cop comes out, and I'm wondering like obviously something like I as soon as the cop showed up, I'm like the kid's just gonna throw that car like a fucking toy because this power that he has literally is like so unstoppable. It's vicious. But the cop just slowly starts with his flashlight through the windows and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he shoots to the sky. Like in that movie The Vanishing, I think with Julia Roberts, or not Julia Roberts, Julianne Moore. I think it's The Vanishing. I may be wrong on the title, but it's about like where all these people like shoot to the sky and stuff like that. And now that like Nope came out, and I haven't seen the movie Nope yet, but there's a lot of scenes in the trailer where people and animals start getting launched to the sky. Terrifying idea, and it just shoots straight up, and it holds on the sky for a while, so you think he's gonna come right back down, but no, it just holds on the sky, and it's like, where did this guy go? Did he get shot right into space? Like, what's going on here? He just straight up. It was crazy. It was hilarious though. There is a silly cornfield vision that Allie starts to have, which was kind of unfitting. I didn't like it. They could have just cut it right out because it served no purpose to the film whatsoever. It was just there to be creepy for creep's sake. And I don't know. It was just meh for me. And then it's revealed that the child is actually Cole's, not Helen's. And Cole is actually from Gatlin, so this is the Gatlin tie in. And it turns out that Cole was the soldier at the beginning of the film. So basically, when he came back home with PTSD from the war, saw this horrendous shit that these kids were doing, killing all the adults, which is what the children of the corn do, really fucked with his head. And then he had this kid, and I guess this kid ended up being part of the children of the corn. Why you would have a kid and with whom, I don't know, unless it was with that Ukrainian girl, but she said it wasn't his. So she did say she was the one to lock him in the what's it called, the shed, because of his powers and stuff like that. It wasn't Cole's idea. It was actually Helen's. But it's it's really hard to tell people's motivations, and there's not everything explained, and there's plot holes here and there, like I said. But the more important things are explained, and that's really all I need. This is the part I really like. Okay, you guys ready?
Ready?
Okay. So this delivery truck shows up and just backing up to the house, and Tim and Allie can see it through the window, and Cole's outside waiting for it. And apparently it's just a food order of, this guy delivering groceries and meats and all this stuff to Cole. And they start talking, and Cole basically says to the guy, I have these two guests that really need a ride into town. Can you give them a ride into town? And you're like, shit. Because Cole kind of seemed like he was imprisoned in the house himself. He didn't seem like he started to. He was always a villain, but he started to kind of show that he was trapped himself. Like this entity had a complete hold of his mind and his soul, basically, which is awful. So he kind of seemed like he was stuck in the house in the exact same way as Tim and Allie were, which I found interesting. So he says to this guy that he can drive him into town, and I'm like, wow, he's actually he is genuine. All right, so he's not he's not an evil completely sadistic guy that just wants wants to take advantage of these people. But yeah, they come out and they go, and this guy basically offers them a ride, except he only has room for one in front, so the other one's gonna have to go in the back. And they are starting to find this guy a little bit suspicious, and the guy basically has a vision of himself in the back of the truck. Like again, another vision that's given to him by the entity of himself like dead or tortured or something like that. So he's just like, fuck this. He grabs her by the hand, Allie, and runs to the cop car and basically steals the cop car. And the guy who was driving the delivery truck is like, I don't think it's a good idea to be stealing or borrowing a police officer's car. They have a hard time starting it, but they finally do, and they get the hell out of there. And I'm like, all right, what's gonna happen now? Because this is like the climax of the movie, and I don't see them getting away scot free. So I was really interested. Helen ended up also buying like a car pack, like dinky cars basically, for the kid, because she has a very big heart for the kid. She has a very big love for the kid. So she snuck that in the order, and she basically ordered him a bunch of toys. And she goes to the back, she gives him the toys, and she basically tells him, the kid, the little guy, that she's going to take him out of this shithole as soon as she can. And she gives him a kiss, she walks out the door, and then he uses his powers. She locks him back in there, and she uses his powers to he uses his powers to break the padlock. And I'm like, why didn't he do this from the beginning? That makes no sense. He could have done this so many times. He just has the power to do it now. Maybe, I was gonna say, maybe the entity has control of itself, has its own mind, and the kid doesn't have as much control over it as we thought he did. But then in the climax, that's completely reversed. So it is the kid controlling this power. So, regardless of that padlock plot hole, he uses like a like a pitchfork to go straight into the Helen and kill her basically. And these guys are running down the highway, thinking you think they're gonna escape, and then the kid starts playing with dinky cars as he puts them all in the back of a truck, and there's this truck on the highway that's carrying a bunch of cars. This is where the final destination part comes in. And there's this car hanging off the back, and you're like, oh no. And then there's this great, and I mean great, highway car flying scene where they have to, like, dodge the cars and shit like that. And they end up crashing, and Tim ends up dying, and then, not Helen, Allie is found by this guy who was driving the delivery truck. And he opens the door, and he sees that the guy's dead, and then he brings Allie to the car, and he says he's going to take her to safety. Allie is like, basically, she's lost her mind at this point. She's just like, fuck it, take me wherever you want. I don't give a shit anymore. Kill me, whatever. She's like almost catatonic. Almost catatonic. But he takes her right back to the house where Cole and Helen lives, and all of a sudden, these women show up that apparently Cole has, like, or Preacher Cole, I should say, has saved. And I'm like, where the fuck were they for the last hour and a half? Like, where did these bitches come from? Like, it's so random. They were nowhere to be seen, and all of a sudden there's these chicks with Amish clothes, and they're all like farmers' girls, and they're like these children of, or not children because they're adults, but like worshippers of coal, and then Allie is now the new one. So Allie goes to the shed and she basically sits beside the kid. She starts to cuddle the kid and hum to him as if it's her child. Also, I don't know how, what, it's not specified, but you would think that in the car accident she would have also lost the baby if Tim had died. But regardless, she goes all mommy mode on this kid, and just like you can tell that she's having a complete mental breakdown. It's just she's lost it. She's just done with life, and she's like, wherever I end up, whatever happens to me, I'm just fucking sick of it now. Give me whatever. And then she looks at the camera and the credits come up. Now, if you shut the movie off within like 5 to 10 seconds, you'll miss a post credit scene. And there is a post credit scene where the Allie is asleep and the kid is still playing with his truck. And then he looks up and he takes another one of those corn figures, like corn figurines with that look like a little man or whatever, and he's going like this with it, and he's playing with it, and he's playing with it, and he drops it on the ground, and then it flashes to a scene outside, and Buddy, who was in the sky, crashes on the ground. I'm like, that's hilarious. Because I was wondering what happened to that motherfucker. Did he go to space or some shit? No. Apparently he was floating around in the sky, and he goes like this, he goes like this, and he just drops it, and here comes Buddy. Like, most unexpected thing I've ever seen. So that might, just might, take the film up half a star just right there. But I still think I'm going to leave this at a 3. I'll think about a 3.5, but 3 is good for this film. It's an enjoyable Children of the Corn sequel, even though it is a really, really big mess. It is really cliche. It's gonna annoy a lot of people with its cliches and with its kind of cheapness. I mean, like it's not a very doesn't have a lot of effort put into the story. And like I said, there seems to be like footage that has been missing or changed or not cohesive enough. But there's great moments and there's great horror, and especially the paranormal stuff is fantastic. So there's worse Children of the Corn films. Like there's definitely worse. This is a very modern feeling for the most part compared to the others, which were like really soaked in '90s and all that. And it's cool. Like Billy Drago's great. The characters are fun. You do care for them. They're not characters that are just annoying and you want to throw away. I mean, Allie could be a little bit of a bitch sometimes, but Tim could also be a little bit of a pussy sometimes. And they were just thrown in a horrible situation that I'd say they did pretty good mentally, being, everything they were going through, especially with the head fucks and the visions that they were having. Really, really crazy stuff. But like I said, you could do worse with Children of the Corn, and it wasn't all that bad. So the ninth in the series, not so bad. I'd say if you want to kill an hour and a half, you could do much worse, and it's in the top half of the franchise, I think. I have one more to go, and that's the 10th, and that's Runaway. I don't own it, so I'm waiting to buy it unless I can find it streaming somewhere, but usually I like to do these reviews with the actual physical copy. So as soon as I find a copy somewhere, I'll be reviewing it, but it may take a while. I don't know how long, but yeah, there's only one more to go, and it's going to be Runaway. So until then, subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more when I can. Check out what's on the channel, and I will chat later. Have a good night. Take care and cheers.